Okay, all right, good.
If I was ever concerned, I'd call you up and say,
Was that a little rough?
is this rough or?
I'd probably call you if it was rough, because I wouldn't bother. This is serious. There's no smiley face.
That was worth taking her to lunch.
There you go.
See the other guy.
They said guaranteed all diagnose your
Well, as long as you have it all, you can look at it.
where it comes from? What comes? It'll go away on its own.
Put them on the same. Years ago, so it's like I got to do one or the other every year. I know that I'm here.
Good thing, because they had been shot back then, and they didn't have any.
You got to do the medical manual because I got them get it pulled off for years, so I'm never good for 2 years. One shot, always good for a year, whatever I do.
No, we have a four. We have four.
Keeps you thinking about.
Don't we?
Yeah.
7, takes 4.
Think about it.
Yep.
Yeah, there you
This time of
go.
year right now, I don't even think about it.
Very
With the quorum of the board present, I call the meeting to order.
And you can, and you could.
Roll call of the board members.
Days that are reviewed.
Commissioner Rooney, not here. Commissioner Hovind, do we expect him to be here?
No.
No,
So this is it?
but he does have a name tag.
That's
That's
Commissioner
Rooney. Is the
Oh, that's
right.
Oh, Dan is going to be here?
Yeah.
Okay, Dan's going to be here, okay. Commissioner Hovind is not expected. Commissioner Goodsa,
Here.
here. Commissioner Kantorowicz,
Present.
present. Commissioner Evans,
Here.
Commissioner Alcott here too. Okay, did you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Oh, yeah,
He's not
Commissioner
here.
Swenson is not here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just as a reminder, the mission of the Airport Authority is to optimize transportation services and development in our region. And the vision of the Great Falls International Airport Authority is to maximize the airport's benefit to our region. The first item is the consent agenda. And we decided that we're going to vote on that.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
Sure. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion or vote by any board member. The consent agenda consists of approval of the board minutes from September 30th, 2014, payroll checks totaling $69,581.23, maintenance and operations checks numbers 20841 to 20914 totaling $269,654.10. Approval of the passenger facility charge totaling $90,000, and the financial reports for September. Is there a motion to the effect of the consent agenda?
Can I just ask for a point of order?
Sure.
Can you guys tell me what check was it I just signed?
When did you sign it?
Monday?
The
Wait a
Talcott?
minute. Yeah.
It was already approved in
That
the
was-
last
okay.
board meeting.
Okay, thanks.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Unanimously approved. Okay, pressure's on. You got a lot to cover today, so we'll get right with it. Parking contract being the first item.
Oh, Director's report.
Or director's report, okay.
Director's report this month, we have a lot of exciting things to talk about. The first thing is our activity levels. We've just finished up the third quarter of the year. In fact, we're almost a month into fourth quarter, but we have activity data through the first 3 quarters of the year, and we are carrying a 5% increase in employments into the fourth quarter. We're on record pace to have another record year for employments. We anticipate right now boardings at the end of the year will be right around 193,000 boardings, which is great and gets us poised to finally get over that 200,000 employment mark here in the next year or two, which will be a great milestone for us. So we're really excited about those activity levels. We knew it would be a really good year with the LA flights and Frontier coming back, and we're hoping we can get both those services back next year. I don't know if Josh knows anything I don't know,
I can't say anything.
but we remain hopeful. We've made contact with both the airlines, or at least tried to make contact. I think Frontier is yet to do their strategic planning for next year, and so they've been very difficult to get a hold of. We don't have any real good indications as to what next summer looks like, if there is a next summer. But we have some real dynamic new marketing ideas if they do come back next summer that I think would really help us to continue to grow that service here in Great Falls. So we're hoping they'll be back. And then, of course, the LA service, we underperformed a little bit on that, but only by about 500 or 600 boardings. So I think there's a real good possibility if that route comes back, we can have an excellent summer next year from that one too. So we're really hoping both those will come back for next year. And that's it on activity. The next thing I was going to report on is our second set of murals. We have some images that Wendt has brought for us to take a look at. We have some real exciting stuff based on the feedback we got from the board a couple meetings ago, I think it was, with regard to the idea of having activities and venues that also feature people in them was kind of the direction that we heard from the board. And so with that feedback, we've shortlisted a series of images that we'd like to pass around to the board for these image boards. And I think some of them are pretty cool. With that, I'll turn it over to Wendt maybe a little bit to talk a little bit about these.
Thanks, John. I'm Jonna Wilcox with Wendt. This is our creative director, Joe Stein. And as John mentioned, we had some input from the board and from John and Laura about showing accessible activities, the various areas. We wanted to cover seasons, so we have some winter in there, some rodeo. So we've grouped together, we've vetted a list of about 10 photos. We need 5 for the second installation, so turn it over to Joe.
One group is called water activities, and so it's a combination of canoeing and 3 options for fly fishing.
And the idea would be to pick one off of that board
Correct.
to represent that category of event.
Or a couple. I mean, we
We
need
could
5
feasibly
total.
pick 2 off of that board.
How many do we need?
5.
And then this is for skiing. Right.
We've had a little bit of an issue finding skiing photos from Showdown. It doesn't look like they've ever done a professional shoot up there. So we would love to feature Showdown specifically, because or Teton Pass, I guess, for that matter, since they're in our region. But we're having difficulty finding good artwork, so we may have to pick something that isn't Showdown, but representative of the area.
Right.
Right there is nice.
Joe did some research and found some imagery that reflected Showdown.
Yeah.
Kind of looked
I
like
like
the
this
mountains in the
one
back,
better.
kind of looked like the landscape, but they're stock.
These are stock images.
So if you put it in the paper like the Tribune, would anybody be able to identify it as not being shown?
No, they would not. They would not.
And then another group would have been the outdoor hiking and wildlife with the one boat photo. This is just the location.
I know what I think, I'll wait and see. Very nice.
and then
Hi, we're just
one other.
passing around some images for the second installation.
We've got a fantastic rodeo shot. I think you guys will really like. I mean, it's great color, it's great action, it's a little bit abstract. It's just a really powerful image.
Action, seasons.
Are these touched up at all?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
This is pretty great.
They're all low res too, because we haven't gotten them from the photographer unless the board decides. Did you want to see them again?
On that one, we're kind of leaning towards that one just because of the color density and the action, and you really can't tell where that is.
Is that the snow one, the skiing one? I like that one
The
too.
one with the guys jumping off the cliff. Yeah, that's
And
that.
the blue sky in the background
Yeah, the
really
blue
gives
is
it a
just, I
good
think,
contrast.
stunning up there.
It does kind of look like Showdown.
It does. It's kind of
Yeah, it's kind of the rolling mountains.
I know,
right.
Joe went the extra mile trying to find something.
And he was gonna time out at 12 months. And basically,
Aren't we lucky? There's another guy.
Aren't we?
I
I think those are all great shots. We were kind of leaning, just when Laura and I looked at these last week, we kind of were leaning towards two from the hiking panel, one probably from the Bob and one from Glacier. The thinking there was, it's two distinct areas that we market directly. And so that's where our leaning kind of was headed. Oh, would you mind?
I can look at them afterwards. Thank you.
That rodeo shot is just awesome, isn't it?
they said we need a quick turn, and I was like,
He's certifiably nuts. Why would you get on a horse like that and then beat you up?
Find out. By the time we go, he said,
Huh?
Well, I looked at some bull riding ones
If you're
too.
really good for $500 or whatever.
It's only 8 seconds.
Yeah, it's only 8 seconds.
They're great.
Yeah, that's the good
Permanent
news.
spine adjustment.
Most accidents are less than 8 seconds.
I did want to mention that the rodeo, the horse is from a custom shoot that we did for another client, and they've offered to let the airport use it for free.
I just think that's an awesome shot, though.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the size of it? Is it going to be cropped to that?
Yeah, this is the exact proportion of.
All horse,
It is all horse.
Yeah,
all horse and mane.
well, and it's, the photographer shot it that way, so there's really no other number around it, so.
They're fantastic.
Aren't they?
There was a lot of Great Falls, Montana.
Yeah.
The activities, they're great.
We have one with a little wildlife in there that represents Glacier.
Really nice.
That's a Bob.
That's almost stealing from the Glacier
Right.
advertisement right there.
Very iconic.
Or VN, is it?
So if you think about the field that these images will live in, of course, on the left side of the checkpoint, it'll be that huge mural of the falls, which takes up 5 frames. So, you'll have that piece up there. Also above the escalators, you've got Lewis and Clark with that image of them pulling the canoes up the hill there next to the water. And then you've got that entire wall of taxidermy from the collection, the Schaefer collection. So we like the idea of the goat, but it's a departure from the idea of bad. We do have a lot of taxidermy already out there. So, like I said, Laura and I, when we looked at these images, we were kind of leaning towards 2 off of the left panel, the skiing shot with the big sky and the guys flying through it, the rodeo panel, and then one of the water activities photos in there. And we would probably bookend the hiking activities away from each other. So either they would be the outside panels, the beginning and the ending, or possibly the second one in. The rodeo one would probably live in the middle to kind of break up the other field of sort of natural areas.
Because there's so much action.
White cliffs.
Oh, that is
That's a very
That
nice
one,
shot
right?
too.
Yeah, because it's a flush.
It's a really nice shot. And we could put 2 water activities in there. The only reason we liked the idea of 2 from here is, like I said, we've got kind of the Glacier and Bob are the 2 main features of our marketing. And we've got I think we were probably leaning towards the
goat?
That's
This is the Bob, and then this is Glacier.
both of these are the same location.
Oh, that's true. You're absolutely right. But it doesn't have a darling goat.
that you could reflect. Isn't that's the same area, right? The two top ones?
Yes, exact
You
same
need to see this,
location,
Joe?
just taking a different
Right,
lighting.
one's winter, one's summer.
Well, you mean these two right here?
Yeah.
Well, they're both probably summertime, springtime, because he's just got a long sleeve shirt, and I mean, there's really not that much snow up there, so just different lighting for that day. Better sky, so.
So, what's your pleasure? Start on the left one first. What do you want to do for the bottom?
I'm sorry?
Bottom left, top right.
The guy with the guy overlooking the, I think that one's got a lot of color, and I like on that one there, the sky matches the ski picture, and, the saturation of blue is similar.
Big sky.
Yeah, and so I think that's kind of neat, that we kind of have those big blue skies together. And even the canoe photo over there, the same saturation of sky.
Yeah.
Anybody disagree with those? Lower left, upper right?
You gonna mark them?
Yeah, don't mark, go ahead. Lower left, upper right.
A big X.
Yeah, put a big X out of the other two.
Okay.
Everybody likes the ski photo with the guy shooting off the cliff there.
Yes.
How about the rodeo photo? Rodeo in there, and you think that's a,
Yeah, I think
Montana.
yeah.
I missed it, Steve.
Upper right.
upper right.
Upper
Upper
right.
right.
Oh,
Your other right.
my bad. Thanks, Brett.
That's the one with the thumb on the left.
When we're looking at it, not when you're looking at it.
I think those are excellent choices. I think that's going to be a very nice mural.
Those river ones, they're,
They're all fantastic.
So we got four.
Does everybody like the canoes on the river? Is that the best one of those?
The other ones are free.
Oh, that
Which one's free?
The other ones are CVV photos.
These
I'm
two
sure
are
they would
free.
let us use them.
The lower left is not?
No,
Can I, yeah.
that's the canoes parked
Yeah.
on the White Cliffs.
Who did the canoe?
White Cliffs is very unique.
Tony
To our
Barnum.
Had
region.
Tony.
Yeah.
So the other, and the one up above isn't, what's the one up above, John?
That's Todd Classy out of
So that's
Hadley.
so the two on the right are gonna cost, the two on the left are,
The opposite of that,
Probably
right? On the left are going to cost, on the right are free.
right? I'm not doing it as I'm staring at you guys. So if I'm looking at it, yes, the right are free, the left are gonna cost.
Like the guy fishing
They're choosing the right.
is a paid job.
Choosing like the left bottom one.
Sometimes you gotta pay to play.
Yep.
Yeah, I like either one of the bottom ones. Fine, either one.
Well, I like the White Cliffs one better because of the reflection and all the blue water and the blue sky. I mean, it's deeper blue than the fly fisherman.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a pretty distinct area. People
Oh,
come here
yeah.
to float that all the time, so.
I was sure we got the right.
I don't mean
Trying to match
comment on
that.
the decision, but I think you guys did what we asked you to do. You put all this together, and it's fantastic, but the choices, they're all very good.
We're pretty excited. I think this will be an awesome piece when you come up there and really
So how
say
many
a
are
lot
gonna
about the
be
region.
up there now?
Fine.
Five?
There'll be 5 on this side, and the dam will be the 5 on the other side.
Oh,
So you'll have 10 panels full.
okay.
I'm gonna be posting against it.
Although we're doing the winter scenes.
We're doing the White Cliffs, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, different panels.
Everybody
Or
did.
different?
Oh, no,
Oh,
that's not.
gotcha.
No, that's summer.
Okay, no, that was good.
And this one.
When did you start on those? Will we take the river?
Very nice.
Yeah, they're
I didn't know
gonna,
what
it sounds like they're gonna pick the dam on the White Cliffs.
Damn ones.
All the dam ones, we decided, we've got we went for the time lapse, which is kind of
Oh,
all
gotcha.
curtain water.
Those two left.
And it's the 5 panels that are stitched together all the way across Ryan Dam. It's actually really powerful, piece. And then we captured a GIF file from that, or what is it?
JPEG.
An audio file that we'll play on a loop there. It'll be a button, and so you can go up and press the button and hear the voice of the falls. which will be kind of add a neat element to that.
Like the
mural.
drinking fountain?
Yeah, something like that. Something a lot more powerful than that.
Close to the body.
Yeah, close to the potty, right?
Does anybody want to take one more look at the ones you chose, or y'all good?
I think we're good, don't push it. We might change our mind, you don't want us to change our mind again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your patience. Yeah, good job.
That's exciting, and hopefully the sign contractor is really anxious to get this going, so I think there's a decent possibility we could have these up by Christmas, which would be really nice. So we'll get that direction down to them right away, and hopefully they can get them printed and get them in place. The other thing I was going to mention is we have deployed our comment card boxes. They've been out now for just about a month, and surprisingly, the overwhelming majority of the comments are positive. We received a couple of, I think, real constructive signage type of comments, and one person said the paging system wasn't loud enough, which we've tried to address. A lot of that's the user, whoever's doing the paging. We have some people that come over that pager like, the voice of God or something, and it's so loud, it reverberates the floor. And then we have other people, when they talk into it, you just can't hear them. And so we've continually tried to work with the airlines to make a consistent volume level out of that. And it's been a little bit difficult because, like I said, some of the people are just so quiet. But, I think overall the comments have been really constructive and great. A lot of really favorable stuff in there. So
Isn't there an app for that?
A comment app?
No, an app for
An app.
adjusting the voice volume.
That's a good question.
Leaving it to chance. You think we're not the only airport in the,
But our system is
our system.
older.
There's old, yeah.
Well, no,
Is
we
less
just-
app
we just
friendly?
We just redid the system though.
In the terminal.
Yeah, I mean, that system's not that old.
I don't know.
I don't know, we can certainly check into that. But overall, I think the comments have been really great, and we'll continue to collect some of those. And the last thing I was going to mention is I'm getting a little concerned with our budgeting on the consulting fees. We've just been hit with a number of surprise things in the last 4 months that have begun to drain that fund. We had kind of started off, MDOT asked for some traffic study information, which KLJ has been helping us on putting together for the retail development. And that kind of came out of the I-State development as we were getting into that. They said, well, if you're going to have additional development down here, we need to get some traffic statistics from you. So that was kind of the first unbudgeted item that got us. And then in the last couple of weeks, we've had the issue with the sewer dump for the airplane lav cards. That we've had to go in and design a solution to, and so that's drained off the consulting fees a little bit. I think we can move money around within the budget, we'll be okay, but I did want to point that out as you look through the budget reports over the next couple of months. That's one item to keep your eye on because we're going to be a little pressured on that. We also reached out for a little help with the rental cars in the last month to get some consulting assistance with the project we're going to do next year. We collect those CFCs on every contract that we issue for the rental cars out there. So $9 per contract every time you rent a car goes into the CFC fund. And those dollars are what we plan to use to help fund the roadway program next year. There's quite a bit of rental car specific improvement in there. We reached out to a consultant to help us a little bit in how to structure that. But those consulting fees, I think, will be a little bit tight as we get midway through the year. We may have to move some money within the accounts to make sure we've got enough within the budget. But I don't think it'll be a significant issue, maybe a $5,000, $6,000 type of issue. We could probably make that up in other accounts. But I did want to point that out as you're looking through the monthly budget reports. You're going to see that we've obligated quite a bit of that funding already yet this year. So. And that's all I have on the director's report. We didn't issue any additional change orders this month to the either the SRE project or the terminal project, and so there was nothing new to report on that.
Aren't they done?
No.
We've got
to get the signage board done. On the terminal, we also need to come up with a lighting solution for that exit lane. If you've been through the exit lane recently, you've seen we've got those work lights up there, and we were experimenting on saturating that area with lighting to try to get rid of some of the false alarms on our exit sentry system, and that's worked pretty well. So we're looking for a lighting fixture to fill that space and saturate that area rather than work lights strung across there. which has its own industrial appeal, I guess, but.
Whatever works.
But we are looking for a lighting fixture for that, and then we ideally, with the same time, will buy the lighting fixture for the dining area out here in the lobby, which we had talked about for some time now. We just haven't, we have a vendor that makes nice lighting fixtures, we just haven't decided what we want to order there yet. So we have a couple more things in the terminal. Then the SRE project, we're looking for some racking and things like that to complete the move-in into the new building. We have some soft costs left in that budget, which we'll probably expend in racking and trying to get that building set up for operations. So, but we haven't, like I said, in the last month spent on either one of them. So we're getting closer though.
Anything else from the directors?
That is it.
Okay, now we've got parking contract. That seems to be the last item.
It is. So the parking contract, as we discussed last month, we've been working with a proposal from Republic Parking to extend their parking contract for another 6 years. And in turn, for that 6-year extension, the two primary things that will change in the contract is, the first, they'll increase their minimum annual guarantee amount from the current $400,000 to $600,000. And that's divided out over monthly payments. So what that'll do in effect is increase our monthly cash flow. Instead of getting the big $550,000 check, which we should be getting any day now, at the end of the year. Oh, do we receive it already? So we just received, the $550,000 check at the end of the year. What we're going to do is parse that out over months and reduce the amount we're receiving at the end of the year. So instead of having to cash flow through our reserves and other things, some of the monthly operating costs, we'll have that $600,000 that'll be paid out over the 12 months to help out. That's an extra $200,000 parceled out between the months that we can use for operating cash flow, and then that'll buy down the concession payment at the end of the year. Because the way the contract works is we receive revenue based on this revenue matrix in the middle of the memo here. And we've been exceeding the levels all the way up to the 91% the last year or two. So we can pretty much predict that we're going to receive at least $600,000. And that's what makes the parking contractor comfortable with increasing that amount. Several years ago, even 4 or 5 years ago, our revenue was 25, even 30% less than where it is today. And so that's, now that we've achieved that higher level for a number of years now, they're willing to increase the monthly flow and take the risk that somehow our parking revenue wouldn't ever get up to that $600,000 level, which it's unlikely to ever get there. What I've given you here is we've gone throughout the state and taken the revenue structure that the other airports have, and we've applied that to our existing parking revenue to compare how our parking revenue would flow through their matrix, what we would receive based on their matrix. As you can see, when you look through here, Missoula, Billings, and Bozeman, we would actually do quite well. We're actually doing quite well now compared to how we would do under the revenue matrix at these other airports. Billings has kind of an odd structure where their revenue fluctuates pretty significantly between years. And 1 year, the first 2 years of their contract, we would do better. The last year, we would do much worse. And so, all in all, we think we have a very good revenue structure today. The concession structure is very fair. We think we're getting a good dollar amount off the concession structure. It's receiving the money more timely that we're really targeting with this contract extension. In addition to that, Republic will go out and finance the cost of the toll plaza move, which we estimated about $400,000 in order to rebuild that parking plaza, new toll equipment, everything it takes to get that toll plaza up to speed in the new location. And then at the end of the contract, whether we extend the contract or we get a new parking contractor, there'll be a buyback for that unamortized equipment amount in the amount of $250,000. So they'll finance the full $400,000. At the end of 6 years, there'll be residual left, and either we would buy out the remainder of that equipment cost, or we would require the new operator to come in and pick up that cost.
How many years would the contract have to be for them to absorb the 250?
The full 250. We haven't asked them that. We worked towards a first a 5-year deal, and then as they looked through the numbers, they said, well, we can't amortize the full amount, and so originally we were talking about 200,000, then we came down to the 250 was the buyback at the end of the contract at 6 years. If we RFP'd it, we would probably do a 10-year deal. Presumably, we might be able to get the entire $400,000 paid for in that period. The revenue structure might change a little bit depending on how the RFP came out. But all in all, I think it's a really good contract extension. I think we get a lot done in there. Republic has done a nice job for us. And then I think at the end of that 6 years, it would be a good time to really think about this other option here, which is to self-operate the parking lot. I was talking to Durango a few weeks ago about their operation. They're going to go to a full-time unattended system. And so they're going with full automation, which will have 3 lanes of automation, 1 cashier all the time. They're going to no cashier, and if there's a problem in the lane, it buzzes their maintenance department. They have a 24-hour maintenance department. Currently, we don't have 24-hour maintenance. We don't have anyone here in the overnight shift, and so except for the security folks, and it makes it difficult for us to respond if there is a problem in the lane. When we get another 6 years out or so, it might be a good time to think about putting together a full-time operations department, and that might be a good way to fund that by going to a self-pay system. And maybe at that point you've got $110,000 in staffing costs that are being expended today to have cashiers out there that we could use to help fund that new position for an overnight. I actually need a couple people to do 24/7. Fund those new positions to put a 24-hour operations department together. But I think for the time being, I think we're better off to have that cashier presence. We get a few more years down the road and get people used to using these auto pay machines, because we'll have 3 of them open all the time. Then I think that would be a good time to transition into full-time auto pay once people have had a chance to really experience that for a few years and get a lot of people used to it. Plus, a couple things are coming down the road with Pay with Your Phone, Apple Pay, those applications, which I think people will be more accustomed to using in a few years. That'll make it a lot easier for people to pay at stations like this. So I would recommend that we do execute the extension with Republic, offer them that 6-year extension, and get the toll plaza paid for through that Republic contract.
I might have asked this at the work session last month. If I did, I apologize. What happens if the project costs more than $400,000?
Well, it shouldn't cost more than $400,000. We are going to do some enabling stuff for it, but I would presume we're going to have to step in and probably finish some elements of that project at that point. But we are going to do some things like some of the paving and things that we're doing in the roads next to it. So I think $400,000 is a pretty safe bet for that. But if it does exceed $400,000, we're probably going to have to pick up the residual in there.
Commissioner Casey?
What is organic passenger growth?
We're getting so.
I read it.
So the organic passenger growth, what I'm saying there is over the last few years, we've been able to really grow through bringing more Canadians down and bringing more people into the market. That's really been the secret of our passenger growth. What we need to really develop now is the economy's picking up and there's a backlog of jobs and people are fully employed and that type of thing. We're hoping for some growth within the community that'll begin to fill some of these flights in the shoulder seasons and also some of the summer flights. And so what we're really thinking now is if we can just begin to get some of that local growth and have some options like the economy lot that we would offer out at $5 a day, $20 a day, we can attract some passengers into the lot that historically haven't been there at all. A different class of parker there that normally would have someone drop them off. And what we want to do is find that sweet spot where we're not discounting for everybody that is willing to pay more, but for those folks that weren't going to come, attracting them into the lot. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say organic growth is we're expecting, because the local economy is doing better now than some other parts of the states, we're hoping that we can begin to grow the local traffic and create some new travelers that historically haven't been out of state travelers in the past.
Okay. Is there any other, is that the extent of the explanation? Does anybody have any further questions on the parking proposal that's,
When does the increase in the minimum pay?
They're willing to begin that increase in November. So we
This
would,
year?
yes. So we have 1 year left, basically. I think we're done 11 months, but we have approximately a year left of the existing contract. But we did ask them if they would immediately increase that monthly take, and they did agree that they would do so. So right away, we'll begin generating that additional working capital that we can use rather than pulling things out of our STIP fund constantly and limiting our investment income.
That'd be about another 15, 17,000 a month.
Exactly, which is, a pretty good increase in our cash flow when you really think about it.
I'm only trying to really look at your self-operate estimate, right? But you say that the operating profit is estimated to be 30 to 40, but it must be more than that. Because they're willing to pay considerably more next year, 17,000 times 12.
Well, but remember, the way it's structured today, they pay us $400,000 divided in monthly increments. But at the end of the year, when the money flows through that concession matrix, they end up giving us a check for about $500,000. And so all we're doing now is we're saying, we know we're going to get to this step. We both know we're going to get to this step in the water flow, through the concession flow through the matrix. So let's increase the monthly take and then lower our year-end take in order to give us working capital that we need.
You're front-end loading. That's
Well,
what
right.
well,
you're getting it.
it
up front.
is, but
really our money.
your question is,
Yeah.
where's the 400,000 coming from? Because that's additional expense to them, right?
Not really, no. I mean, at the end of the year, they're going to pay it either way, because once the money goes through the cash flow, the concession flow, they owe us that money anyway.
So they're reducing how much they're gonna pay us at the end of the year? Because they're gonna be paying for the 400,000.
Right. The way the
So we're
contracts,
self-funding it.
Their installments just go up month by month.
their monthly installments go up, and then their buyout at the end of the year is less.
Well, not only because of that, but because they're building a new facility, a new $400,000.
Oh, yeah, and they have to fund that themselves too.
But,
so-
but what do you mean that, they fund that themselves? They're funding it with our money.
No.
Well, it's,
But I think Dan's point is that if you're only making $40,000 a year, and, you're spending $200,000 over the extension or the other contract, which is how many years?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
So that's $30,000 a year.
Yeah, and if you look, we've got this cash flow in here where we kind of have shown how that works, and, so this multicolored sheet in here is kind of the projection. You see they're going to generate 30, sometimes, a little less than that, and that has the cash flow built in there for the $400,000 investment. So, there's really nothing in that matrix that they're paying for. What we're saying is, in order to get that 6-year extension, you're going to have to fund the $400,000. At the end, we're going to pay you back $250,000, but you are going to have to fund that. And so you're right. If you looked at a pure cash flow basis, more or less they're going to lose money the first couple of years in order to make money the last few years. This cash flow shows them amortizing that cost. It's in the green, the dark forest green section. You can see we've got it built in there at $800,000 per year, which is their carrying cost, plus the $33,000 in canopy amortization, which adds up to the $200,000. So they're funding roughly $41,000 per year in order to pay for that canopy, and it does reduce their profit down to $26,000. But it's if you take that out of it and you're looking at a purely cash flow basis, they're negative $400,000 in the front end. But then they're making, $60,000, $70,000 per year in actual cash flow to pay that back. So the contract doesn't pass the break-even point for them until about year 3 or 4. But then after that, they're making pretty good profit. And then at the end, they get that $250,000 buyout of the remaining costs. So it doesn't make a ton of money. I mean, and it shouldn't, frankly. I mean, if this made much more money than that, I would say we need to step in and operate it. But I think this is a pretty fair deal for both parties, and they're stepping up to it. And again, they buy equipment all around the country, so I don't know what financing terms they're able to get these things at. That's one of the advantages of having an operator, is they buy so much of this equipment because they operate city lots and airport lots, that they're probably able to get fairly beneficial purchase terms and financing terms through the manufacturers.
Sounds about like farming to me.
Exactly. Here's $1 million tractor, hopefully you can pay it off before it breaks.
Does that answer your question?
You did, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there any, would like to propose a motion?
I'll make the motion that staff extends the contract for the 6-year period as outlined and presented in the board packet.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Are there any questions at this point? Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, which is, as I understand it, approving staff to continue with negotiations as it was presented for the parking agreement, as it was presented. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up at this time? Any comments from Commissioner Rooney?
No.
Commissioner Goodson? KC? Deb? I have no comments at this time. Are there any comments from the public that they would like to bring to our attention at this time? Okay, then at this time, with no further business to come before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. And at 10:02, we'll roll into the work session.
All right, thank you.
Way to go.
Thanks for giving me the.
It'd be tough to be in the parking business
I
as a
just grabbed a chair
one-off
for an
operator.
explanation.
The margins are thin, they do it on volume,
Yeah.
and not volume.
Close down. That's all you gotta know.
I mean, there are some opportunities in there for them. Now, they can save a little bit on labor because we're going to that automated system. So if they're smart about it, they can probably reduce that labor number some and make it a little bit more challenging.
At this point,
Right.